What are other successful people doing to reach their goals that you aren't doing?
How do you become the person you've always dreamed of being?
You've come to the right place where all of your questions will be answered.
We are Jodi
and Jess Plishka, and in our 2 segment, Turning Obstacles into Opportunities, we sit down with amazing people and discuss their most epic challenges in life.
You'll discover the driving force that propelled them into greatness and what strategies and tactics they use to get there.
We want to inspire you to believe that if they can do it, you can too.
Money, free time, happiness,
goals. Welcome to the Jodi and Jess Show, a mad
mom and daughter
podcast. Hey guys, before we get started, if you're seeking a life that is more powerful and bigger than anything you ever dreamed was possible, check out our Master It All Goal Achieving Program and private coaching, which are designed to help you break free from your toughest struggles,
allowing you to wake up feeling motivated and inspired to start living the life you've always dreamed of living.
If this resonates with you, you can visit our site at jodijess.com. That's JODIJESS.com and click on the classes page for more information.
You can even set up a free 20-minute breakthrough session to see if working with us is right for you.
Now, let us introduce you to our next amazing guest. This week, we are chatting with 4-time best-selling author and founder of the Evolutionary Business Council, Teresa de Grosbois.
Just notice that if you have a resistance to creating goals and creating plans, that it might mean that you're making yourself a bad person if you don't achieve them. And really, all they are is a stake in the ground that you're pulling yourself toward. But don't stay in that energy of beating the crap out of yourself for weeks because you didn't meet a goal.
Teresa is a multi-million-dollar author and speaker who's specializing in the topics of influence and success.
Teresa has taken 3 books to bestseller status in only 8 months.
Her book, Mass Influence, hit #1 on the international bestseller status in North America and Europe on the same day it launched.
Teresa is also the founder of the Evolutionary Business Council, an invitation-only council of speakers and influencers dedicated to teaching the principles of success.
In today's episode, Teresa talks about being a single mom who wasn't fulfilled in her career and how she took a leap of faith to quit her job and turn her passion into her new career.
Teresa teaches you how to surround yourself with influential people who can help propel your life forward and how to set and achieve your goals.
Make sure to stay tuned to the end because Teresa has an incredible giveaway for you.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share with your friends because in the next few weeks, we're going to have some really amazing guests that you won't want to miss.
And on that note, let's meet today's guest,
Teresa de Grosbois. Hello and welcome to the Jodi and Jess Show, a mother-daughter podcast. I am Jess Plishka.
And I'm Jodi Plishka.
Today our segment is 2, if we can do it, and our amazing guests can do it, you can do. And of course, 2 stands for Turning Obstacles into Opportunities. And today our amazing guest is Teresa de Grosbois. Teresa, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And I'm super, super excited because I myself am a member of the EBC and have had the opportunity to speak with Teresa and on many different occasions. And just know that you bring such an incredible wealth of knowledge and you bring people together and you're doing something so amazing. And I'm just really honored to be part of it. So I think this is probably going to be one of my favorite interviews of the week, just being able to talk with you and have you explain to people how you got started in doing what you're doing of helping other people.
So this segment is called Turning Obstacles into Opportunities. And really what we want to hear is how you turned your obstacles, any obstacles that you faced in life. I'm sure you had many. How did you turn those obstacles into opportunities to land you where you are today, being extremely successful?
Yeah, what was one of your major internal blocks, or what was something that when you first got started, Teresa, what was a challenge? What was a roadblock that you hit that you were able to overcome? Could we start back and try to find what that is with you?
Yeah, I think the first really big one for me was, how do you leave an awesome, high-paying job as a single mom to step out and actually really live the life of your dreams, to be a contribution in the world. It's probably about 16 years ago now. And I was a single mom, but in a great job in Canada's oil and gas sector as a leader in one of the larger organizations. And I remember thinking, I like my job. It's hard to leave a job you like, but there was just this burning inside of me saying, this can't be all there is. This isn't what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life. And I really had this desire to reinvent myself. I remember at the time, my inner dialogue was so flared up. Any thought of, how can you be so irresponsible to leave a job and you've got 2 kids and take all that risk? And so I had to actually create the opportunity for myself to do it in a way that I wouldn't freak myself out so badly that I would paralyze myself.
Oh, right. How old were your kids at the time?
At the time, I think they were, they were about 5 and 8.
Oh, so now you're not talking teenage, like you're talking young kids. Wow.
They were very young at the time, and now they're in university, so they're getting pretty close to being full.
Oh, awesome.
That's great.
So I played a game with myself. I told myself, well, let me take 2 weeks of vacation, and in that 2 weeks, I will look at completely reinventing myself and be something totally different for that 2 weeks. And then, I went home and thought about it, and I thought, well, if I could take 2 weeks vacation, I could ask for like a month of paid leave, and they would give me a month of paid leave. So I went back to my employer and asked for the month of paid leave, and they said yes. And 2 weeks into, my exercise of reinventing myself, I was having so much fun and I was making so much progress. I realized, I've learned to live fairly simply and on a fairly low budget. I could afford to do this for a year, and if I still wasn't making it in a year, I wouldn't have really significantly impacted my financial health. So I went back to my employer and said, do you mind adding a year's leave of absence onto the leave of absence I've already asked?
Oh, wow.
And they said, well, we won't hold your same position for you, but we'll guarantee that we'll give you a position when you come back. I was a well thought of leader in the organization. So at that time, I think it equated to about 16 months that I had to total. But by doing it that way and keeping the mental safety net under myself that, if I fail, it helped me calm down the inner dialogue of how irresponsible are you being? And, I'm the youngest of a very large Northern Canada family. I've got 8 older brothers and sisters, and being the youngest, I've always had a lot of inner dialogue, like a lot of younger siblings have around, I'm too small to play with the big kids, or youngest children often have imposter syndrome. I've done a lot of work on my imposter syndrome, which basically means, you attain great success and you can't believe that they actually picked you. But doing it that way and keeping the safety net under me really helped me to sort of quell the fear. And I won't say I still didn't have fear, but it turned it from terror into mild fear, because the safety net was still there. And that really gave me the freedom to go out and try stuff on and figure out what it was that would really light me up and create that kind of lasting happiness that comes from really being a contribution to the world.
So what was a precipitant? I know people out there are probably thinking, I'm not really happy with my job. And I'm getting paid a lot of money, but I don't really like what I do. I want to be like Teresa, but I have no idea where to start. So if we can just go back a little bit. So your precipitant was you weren't happy, but how did you actually take that leap of faith? What was it that allowed you? You're different than other people. And that's why we have this show, because we want to show the mind of an entrepreneur how it works differently from other people. However, despite your circumstance, you can also learn how to do this as well. I want to make sure people know that at the end of this, you will be empowered. There are ways that you can do this as well. But could you kind of enlighten us as to the precipitant?
Well, I had taken a number of, empowerment type training courses. Those certainly raised the question in me of what legacy did I want to leave and who did I really want to be in the world? And I found myself often in friend circles saying things like, I really do need to quit my job because I really feel like there's this bigger and more important life out there for me where I'm a deeper contribution to the world. And this is where who you choose for your friends becomes really important, because they really do say you become like the 5 people you hang around with the most. If I had different friends than I had at that time, they probably would have said, Teresa, don't you dare quit your job. It's nice to dream, but do that when you're retired. But with the friend circle I had, that were actually people who some of them were successful entrepreneurs and had gone out and done it, their response to me when I would say that was, so when are you going to do that, Teresa?
Oh, that's awesome.
And they held my feet to the fire until I finally started thinking about, okay, what would I do? And the reality is, it doesn't even really matter what you pick. It only matters that you pick.
There you go.
Because it's like, if you want to create a new life for yourself, it's sort of like saying, I want to go buy a new coat. And if you don't ever go try on a coat, you won't know what coat you want. And so in choosing something, you fairly quickly realize whether that was the right coat to put on or not, right? And so in my case, I had always written little poems and stuff as hobbies my whole life. My whole family does this. We give poems to each other for our birthday.
Oh, I love it.
And I had written some poems for my kids for their birthdays that they had been saying, Mom, you should turn these into books. And so that was my first thought. My second thought was that I'd like to start a charity to help build schools in Africa. And so I merged those two thoughts, and I thought, well, let me create a charity and we'll help build schools in Africa, and I'll write the kids' books and I'll use the kids' book to raise money for the charity. That was my initial thought. And so I went out and did it, and several things happened in fairly short order, like within 4 to 6 months. The first thing that happened was I quickly put all 3 books on the bestseller list. The second thing that happened was I discovered that I did not like being a children's author or going around to schools and doing kids programs. I didn't dislike it, but it was kind of like my other job. It was nice, but it didn't really light me up as being the contribution I wanted to make in the world. And the third thing that happened was I discovered I didn't really like running a charity because there's just so much administration. Not-for-profits aren't necessarily a really great way to get anything done. They're very cumbersome and slow to do anything. And I remember one day I was sitting with one of my best friends, Dr. Shonda Perrin, who you may know. She's actually quite a famous speaker in North America and has actually been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And Sean and I were sitting having a cup of tea, and I was kind of venting about the fact that, here I had quit my job and I'm trying to find myself and I'm not loving what I'm doing, but I'm having a blast because all these people are coming at me saying, wow, 3 bestsellers in 8 months. How the heck did you do that? And tell me how. And Sean just looks at me. If you've ever met Sean, you can imagine how she has a very pointed way of looking at you. And she says to me, honey, when the universe is sending you a flood of something you love, that's the time to pay attention. And that was one of those beautiful light bulb moments of, okay, I was trying on a coat and the coat didn't quite fit, but here's the coat that fits better. And it was kind of one of those moments in my life of realizing, how they say fish don't know what water is? We often don't know what we're really good at until dozens of people start demanding it from us. And that's where I started to really realize, I've been spending my whole career working on influence building, leading these big initiatives. And so I really understood how influence and word of mouth epidemics work. I just hadn't been applying that knowledge to something that really lit my fire. And when I thought about, okay, but what if I use that skill for something that really made a difference in the world? And so I rebranded myself into Wildfire Workshops, and I started working with light workers and people who really wanted to make a difference in the world.
How long ago was that?
Probably about 13, 14 years ago now. But out of that eventually grew the Evolutionary Business Council and so many other things. It just took a little bit of, I don't even want to say floundering, because the other stuff was important for me to do, but it wasn't the true path. I needed to try that coat on, though, to find the coat that really did fit me.
I love how you said that. Most people don't really understand the quantum physics or, neuropsychology. The whole world is made up of energy, and it's up to us to be able to take our little antennas and put them up and use our brain, which is our electromagnetic gatekeeper, and be able to pull in that energy and be able to utilize what's out there. So the intentions that we set and what we put out there, we need to be able to hear and get that information back to us. So I think I think it's so awesome when you said, sometimes we don't know what we're good at, or, you just had to, start making those decisions. The first thing I want to do is kind of back up, because I want to ask you a couple questions, because I know people probably have these questions. So you said something profound that we just had our last guest, who's extremely uber successful like you as well. And he said about the 5 people that are around us and we become like them. And I know a lot of people are probably asking, well, how do I find 5 new friends? Because the people that I'm, involved with right now aren't supportive of me. I would love to ask how you found those people in your life. How did you connect, and how can let's help other people connect and learn to connect with other people that are like-minded, mission-driven individuals. That's who I like to align myself with.
Such a good question. In my case, I really believe in creating the world I want to live in. So I actually created the EBC, the Evolutionary Business Council, council so that I could gather those people. And the EBC actually created a context of people who are up to stuff in the world, the change agents of the world, the people who really want to create transformational shift in consciousness in the world. We create the context for them to come in and meet each other so they can become really good friends and support each other, right? And in fact, out of that was born even a further initiative. A group of members of the EBC decided to build an intentional community in Costa Rica because we wanted to have each other as neighbors. The reality is, no matter how great a leader you become, you still have your own work to do. Like, we're never done. The more conscious an individual gets, you'll find the more committed they are to lifelong learning. And yet sometimes you need a more sacred private space for leaders to step into, to do their own work. Because when somebody's up to big stuff in the world, sometimes a regular training room or a regular event, walking into it and talking about the challenges of being a leader up to a big game and with a big reach can land wrong to that room of people. And it cannot feel like a safe environment to talk about it, because to some people that can land like arrogance to talk about that stuff. And so it's important to seek out those areas where there is safety to do your work and other people around, like-minded individuals that believe in being up to something in the world the same way you are.
So you had mentioned, like, when you were just making this shift and you took the leap of faith, which I know a lot of people out there, again, aren't happy with what they're doing. And we know the statistic.
2/3 of the population don't like what they're doing, which is this astronomically huge number.
So out of 100 people, 66 people don't like what they're doing.
Right.
But out of 100 people, and these people that have an idea, do you know that only one person is actually going to write down what they want to do or the decision that they want to do, you know, how they want to make a change. And out of the 100 people that actually write down what they need to write down, only one person's actually going to do something. So the statistic is staggering because people get, you know, they get hung up on fear and they have all these internal negative blocks. And what they thought they should do from the past and what they're doing now are different. And so this cognitive dissonance occurs and they start to have overwhelm, anxiety, and stress. So how did you find the 5 friends? How did you find your 5 friends when you were at your lowest and you had your 5-year-old and your 8-year-old and you just weren't happy and you decided, hey, let's take a leave of absence? Did you already have those people surrounding you?
You know, a good thing to do is go to where they're hanging out. And a great place to meet people like that are, where are they teaching empowerment? So often when you go to events like that, there's numerous ones. So there's people all over North America teaching incredible empowerment events. And you get 2 benefits from going, right? The first is you get to do your own work and look at where your own ego and inner dialogue is stopping you. It's usually your inner child when you were very young, invented certain messages to protect you or make sense of certain circumstances, and those can stay with you into adulthood. But the second benefit of going to events like that is that usually other people are also doing their work and you have opportunities to meet new friends, the kind that support you in stepping into your dream and actually taking action around your dream. Because until you take action on your dreams, you're just dreaming.
I know. I always say a dream is just a goal without a plan. The best thing about entrepreneurs in EBC and the mentality that Teresa has is we are always sharing other people and other people that are power leaders and doing really good things, is trying to help other people understand that these people are out there and that, you know, there are so many. If you go and follow Teresa or follow myself on Facebook and look at some of our friends that we have and try to hook up with some of these groups. And that is how, I like how you said that you have to be able to find it in order to make things happen. I think that's a really good point, you know, for a lot of people out there and a lot of people that are listening. I mean, they may be, you know, entrepreneurs just trying to break through, but they need that support and accountability, like you said, of people that really understand what they're doing. So I think that is really important. Why don't you tell us a little bit more, going backwards, when you were making the changes and you had said that you found yourself in a position that you liked what you're doing, but it just wasn't for you. And for people that are out there that kind of, you know, feel the same way, like, can you explain a little bit more how that worked for you? Like, you kind of liked what you were doing with the schools and I mean, how did you even start that? Like, people are sitting there saying, yeah, well, these people have these great ideas and she did all this stuff, but how did she do it? Like, how did she even begin? Like, I don't even know where to start. I mean, people don't know where to start. Can you just help guide somebody along the way?
Well, let's start at the beginning. And, you know, a good place to start is, who do you want to be in the world? In other words, there's 2 types types of happiness out there. Aristotle was actually the first philosopher to ever talk about this. Aristotle talked about hedonistic happiness, which are the pursuits of the flesh, that joy we get when we eat an awesome piece of pumpkin pie or have a really great latte. And those are appropriate forms of self-love, but they're also very fleeting. Hedonistic happiness, as soon as the experience is gone, the happiness is gone. Aristotle also talked about eudaimonia, or eudaimonistic happiness, which is the happiness that comes from knowing you're a deep contribution to your family, your community, or the world at large. And eudaimonistic happiness is the kind of lasting happiness that settles into our soul, that we simply walk through the day happy, and we don't even need the piece of pumpkin pie to light us up anymore. We're just happy. And so this is the invitation to step into your own eudaimonia, become a eudaimaniac. If you really want that kind of lasting happiness where your life feels really turned on and awesome, then the types of dreams you need are the types of dreams that have you become a high contribution to the world. So not wrong to dream of having a BMW or a great house. I'm not dissing those dreams, but those dreams will not bring you lasting happiness. You'll get the joy when you first move in, and then the house will become irrelevant, right? Not irrelevant, but less important to your happiness.
That is so true. In cognitive neuroscience, just to kind of briefly interrupt, that type of happiness or behavioral psychology is called extrinsic motivation. So the hedonistic is also parallel to the extrinsic. And we always tell people, like, if you're going to be following the mighty buck, once you get there, like you said, you're not going to have that intrinsic happiness. And the intrinsic is like the eudaimaniac of, really enjoying and doing something because you love doing it for yourself. And then the money will follow after. But continue with that. I love your three with Aristotle.
That's a beautiful build. I love that. And I mean, Maslow talked about this in Maslow's hierarchy of need. Right. And, so there's been many brilliant people refer to this. So what it really comes down to is, at some point, if you want that kind of lasting happiness, you got to decide what your life's about. Now, maybe your life's just about being a deep contribution to your family. That's not inappropriate. Or you might have a charity you work for, or you have an organization you work for that you deeply believe in, and you can make that your life's mission. Any of those things are appropriate. For some people, they really feel called to step up and lead. And here's where it becomes important to understand influence theory. Because there is nothing that flares up our negative self-talk and our inner dialogue more than our own thoughts of stepping into leadership and really being a contribution in the world. Because the minute you start thinking about your dreams to really be a contribution, that is freaking scary, because they're your dreams. And your dreams are bigger to you than they are to anyone else, because they're your dreams. That's huge, right? And yet nobody else is better hardwired to go out and step into your dreams than you, because, you will be more passionate, you'll be more committed, you'll be more charismatic. You're the one the world is waiting for, right? So a really important thing to start noticing is, do you find yourself saying, someday when I am blank, I will blank? Or do you find yourself saying, why doesn't somebody just fill in the blank, right? Because if you hear yourself saying things like that, maybe someday is today, and maybe you're the somebody that should be doing it. And maybe that's truly your dream of making a difference in the world and really being a contribution to the planet.
So number one is understanding, having that self-awareness that you are that person, and believing it and releasing those internal negative blocks, like you said, when we were children. And the best way for people who don't really understand what we're talking about with internal negative blocks, it's like broccoli. It's like a 7-year-old child who says, I hate broccoli. I really hate broccoli. And now you're 35 years old and you still hate broccoli. But the question is, have you really tried it lately? So one of your friends comes and says, oh, try this steamed with a little bit of garlic and lemon and you'll love it. Your inner child says, I don't want broccoli. But then you try it and you like it. And you're like, oh my goodness, I have to get rid of that negative internal belief that's housed in my subconscious mind all these years telling me that I don't like broccoli. And so the most important thing what you just said is, maybe you are that person today, is bringing that awareness and getting rid of those negative internal blocks. The only way you can do that is by recognizing that they exist and even knowing that they exist, and then being able to take action. So I think that's really important. So hopefully people understand what we're talking about with the negative.
Well, that's a great analogy how you outlined that too, because it really is our inner child.
I love how you said that.
Yeah.
And so, I dislike when certain experts talk about killing off the ego or shedding the ego, because that's like, wow, you would kill off your inner child? Right?
No.
Yeah.
I like to talk about it like, give your inner child a new job description, because your inner child got into this habit of giving a warning to you every time they thought there was a risk of danger, or you looking bad, or you looking stupid or foolish. And so your inner child got into this habit of saying, careful, oh, careful, careful, careful. And that's what your inner child thinks is its job title, right? I'm there to give her warnings all the time. And a lot of those warnings are totally inappropriate to an adult now because they're seen through the eyes of a 2-year-old, right?
It is. 95%
Of all of your fear
and your voices
are just in your head, and then it's only 5% really is based in reality, which is so fascinating.
Absolutely.
Isn't that crazy?
So give your inner child a new job description. My inner child, I call her Tessie because that was my nickname.
Oh, that's cute.
They called me 2-ton Tessie because I was a really tiny kid with a really big personality.
Oh, that's so cute.
So Tessie's job description is now several things. First, she's in charge of fun. So when I go on a podcast or on stage or whatever, Tessie's like in charge of keeping us smiling, infinite fun. The second thing is when I get afraid as an adult, it's Tessie's job. She's allowed to rub my head and tell me everything will be fine, that I can handle it. Now, if you've ever seen a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old trying to comfort someone, it's actually the most endearing, sweet thing you can ever see. So your inner child is actually really good at comforting you when you're afraid. Tessie's also in charge of connecting with other people's inner child. And she's in charge of reminding me to celebrate when I have victories. Because sometimes I forget to just dance during the day.
Right.
So she takes me out into the living room with my headset on a couple times a day and we dance to Ed Sheeran.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my God.
So give your inner child a new job description because that will be one of the biggest things that will help you really move into a more powerful mindset about stepping into your own eudaimonia.
I love how you explain that. That's so important. And the other thing too, cognitive neuroscience proves that 95% of people's imaginations are squashed by the age of 35. So we need that inner child in us. I love having my inner child be able to have fun and make light of things. And we were just featured on Discover Wisconsin in 3 different states. And the big thing that we talked about was simple living, because I think what you're talking about with that inner child, that simple living, getting back to that intrinsic motivation, doing what you really love, I think that's the true key to happiness. And I think that more people need to heed what you're speaking about, and they need to use their little Tessie inside of themselves to help push their imagination. Because think about it, our imagination as entrepreneurs is what does exactly what you said. It's part of that dream. But that dream, we need to take that dream and turn it into a goal. And the only way to do that is to have a plan. And then we have a plan, we have strategy. But it's a process. And anybody can do this. We all do this. And the difference about an entrepreneur like your brilliant mind, as opposed to somebody who maybe thinks they're not so brilliant right now, is you've written things down. You've had that right information at the right time in the right order. You're taking it, you're moving it forward, and it's helped you become the person that you are today. And you still have, Tessie there guiding you along the way. And albeit silly, it's true. Get in touch with that inner child, because I think that is incredibly crucial for what you're saying. So, but let me let you continue. I think this is so interesting. So,
well, and I love how you talk about that. And for a lot of people, terms like goals and plans can be very heavy, because here they are on their mission, they're stepping into their dream, and then all of a sudden they realize they need a business plan and they need goals and they need key performance measures. And all of a sudden that starts to feel almost like prison, to some people. So here's what I invite you to do, because a plan is nothing more than the steps that you give your word to taking to help you manifest something, right? And what the plan does is it keeps you focused on what you're planning to manifest. It keeps your energy focused in a certain direction. So really notice your relationship to words like that, because if they feel heavy and confining to you, that might be your inner child going, and if you need to use different words, use different words. Because the reality is all a plan does is it keeps you focused on the direction you're moving in. And if you bring up a lot of shame and self-recrimination every time you don't meet an objective on any given week, there's 30 things that were on my do list that just never get done. And if I spent all my time beating myself up that they didn't get done, I'd be constantly in a state of beating myself up. I just roll them forward to next week. If they roll forward too many times, delete, because it's like, okay, obviously that wasn't important enough.
Oh, I like that. That's so true. People get bogged down, don't they?
They really do. Yeah.
And then, like you said, they get bogged down with hating themselves because I didn't do this and I didn't do that, instead of looking at all the things they've done. What I love to do on a daily basis is I love to, write down my goals. And I have 3 really impactful power money goals, like things that I do right away in the morning. And then I have my other 3 goals that I need to finish within a day. And I think, like you said, writing it down, but utilizing, I like how you say using the different words, because some people don't don't like to use the word goal and maybe they just want to say plan, but it's really important. In order to prime your brain for success, in order to move forward, you need to be able to ask your brain the same question as you would ask like a Google search engine. So if you're to put something in there, the other day we were doing something about DNA testing results. And so we just put in there like DNA testing and it came up like everything came up from prison to, I mean, you just name it. But when we honed in and said DNA testing results with 23andMe, then we got exactly what we were looking for. And so people need to understand that the reason that you're setting these goals and plans and whatever you're going to call them is because you need to direct your brain. You need to show your brain exactly like that Google search, what you're doing, what you need to do and how you need to do it. And you're 40% more successful just by writing down your goal. So it's incredibly important to be able to compartmentalize different things like that. So that's a really good point.
It really comes down to what's people's relationship to their word. We talk about this in the Evolutionary Business Council a lot because a lot of people use the I am principle a lot to get them focused on what they want to manifest in the world. Like I am successful, I am abundant, and we use these affirmations. And when you really think about it, the most fundamental and foundational affirmation we all need is I am my word. Because if you aren't your word, then you can I am till the cows come home and you won't believe yourself. And so for many successful people, appropriately so, they make being in alignment with their word a very important thing in their lives. And so things like goals and objectives, they start to worry about them because, boy, what if I set that goal and I don't meet it? Does that mean I'm not my word? And they bring a very moralistic view, like, am I a bad person if I don't meet that goal? But just notice that if you have a resistance to creating goals and creating plans, that it might mean that you're making yourself a bad person if you don't achieve them. And really all they are is a stake in the ground that you're pulling yourself toward. Not that you want to be flippant about not achieving what you say is your word. If you don't meet your word to someone else or even don't meet your word to yourself, you should clean that up. You should acknowledge it and apologize if an apology is appropriate. But don't stay in that energy of beating the crap out of yourself for weeks because you didn't meet a goal. The best, most successful business people and the most successful people on this planet in general all say the most number one trait for any leader or entrepreneur to know is how to fail fast. So set a goal for yourself, and if you fail, forgive yourself quickly and keep moving, because staying stuck in the energy of, oh, I failed, oh no, what am I going to do now? And that's why so many people I think are afraid to set plans and afraid to set objectives, because they're worried what they're going to make that failure mean. I fail daily because I set massive big goals for myself, but in setting those massive big goals, I actually really achieve quite a lot too.
You do.
Right, you learn the most from your failures, I believe, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
It's like,
absolutely.
You have to fail in order to succeed. I think you don't have one without the other, because you need to learn from your mistakes and build your better self and continue on. And that's really important.
Yeah. We got to tweet that one. You have to fail in order to succeed. That's the best quote of the day, Jess.
It is. You have to fail in order to succeed. And we learn the most from our failures because we learn what not to do. And so that's something that's really important. And that's why a lot of people are using, like within the EBC, like coaches, consultants, because, we've all been there, done that. Like Teresa's saying, like we've all failed. We've all had so many failures. And what we do is we bring to the table our successes so people can kind of jump past those failures, and it can help them save a whole bunch of time and not have to, falter if they're trying to, like Teresa, become a best-selling author or, whatever it is. A wise person always knows when to rely on somebody smarter than themselves to help themselves move forward. I've done that as an inventor. I use people who are smarter than me to help me move ahead, get my product to market. As an author, to do the same thing as a speaker. And I know, Teresa, you're talking about Dr. Sean and, people that you've worked with as well. And that's the mind of an entrepreneur, that they're willing to be able to do things like that. So I think that's really a cool idea.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, there's no need to add anything.
Yeah, that's it. That's done. Goodbye. No. But I think what we're talking about is really important because, it's not just about us. It's not about what we do and what we've done. And we're not being egocentric, or we're not trying to show people how they should be like us. My main goal as a therapist is, and Jess is learning too, because now she's working towards her PhD in grad school, and, is to really facilitate those critical thinking skills to get people to open up and be able to see that despite your circumstance, you can do anything. And we're just showing you you that it is possible. And by doing our 2 segment, if Teresa can do it, you can too. You can turn your obstacles into opportunities. That's the purpose of this show, is to give that education, to give that motivation, that dose of inspiration and empowerment that people need, that everybody needs. And we all need it too. And that's why we joined the EBC. The Evolutionary Business Council is phenomenal because it helps us be able to talk with other people and have that accountability. So I think that's super important.
Well, and I love how you break it down into small steps, because really that's the only way to ever achieve anything great, is break it down into small steps. You know, one of the reasons I wrote my book, Mass Influence, was because I wanted regular people to see that stepping into playing a big game and becoming a cause for change in the world is actually a lot simpler than most of us think if we just break it down into little 2-minute-a-day exercises. I created the 30-day influence challenge,
which is awesome, by the way. I've taken it.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And, you know, but I simply did it because I wanted people to see that, look, in 2 minutes a day, you can start to learn this different skill. And it's really just a different paradigm, right? And I love that your work creates it that way too, that really it's not a destination, it's a journey. And if you just focus on what's the next little thing in front of you, let me learn this next skill, let me do this next task, let me focus on this next minor goal that's a part of that bigger goal. And you will get there. I promise you, and it'll be a riot along the way. It really is so fun stepping into your dream.
That's something we always say too, is it's not about the number of steps you take, as long as you're stepping in the right direction. So
I think that's
that's the second powerful. We got to tweet those out.
we see that at the end of every show, because we think we want people to understand it doesn't matter like that you're not, an award-winning author today, but take those steps. I mean, get out your journal, start writing things down, start formulating what you want to write about. Like, who do you want to write to? What do you want to have on the paper? It's like doing a thesis or doing a book report or something. That's why they taught you how to do a book report in school for all those people out there, or, to do a thesis or dissertation or whatever it is that you have done in the past, is because you need to learn those organizational skills. You need to learn, like Teresa said, and I don't like this analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway. They always say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And, it's just people get what that means. Hence the reason I used it. But by breaking things down to the ridiculous is super important, because behavioral psychology shows you that people, when they make goals, that they tend to underestimate what they can do in a long period of time, and they tend to overestimate what they can do in a short period of time. But nonetheless, by writing things down, like you said, it helps people be able to focus on what the next step needs to be. They have those strategies, which is how they're going to do something. It's the big goal that you want to write that book. And then you're going to have your tactics, and the tactics are how you're actually going to be able to do that. What steps you need to take. But like you said, breaking it down into the smallest bite-sized pieces possible. It's like, here, I'll give a really good example for people who are trying to lose weight or starting an exercise regime. A lot of people are like, I can't fit it into my schedule. I don't know how to do this. Those little inner child voices come out and say, you can't do it. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not wise enough. Whatever that negative self-talk is. And, they actually debilitate themselves. So we tell people what you need to do is you need to look at the big goal. Well, I want to shed, 10 pounds. You want to release 10 pounds. So how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to start working out. Well, let's break it down to the ridiculous. Well, what are you going to do every day? Well, 3 times a week, I'm going to do exercise. Well, let's break it down even further. 3 times a week, you're going to exercise, but what are you going to do? Well, for 20 minutes a day, I'm going to start walking on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for 20 minutes around the block, and I'm going to do it every day. So by actually breaking it down and by obtaining those little mini goals, and then before you hit those really big ones, that's what's going to help you be really successful. So those mini goals are the most important, because then you feel empowered. So, you go, you walk, and this week you're like, our last guest said, I worked out since July, whatever. I haven't missed but one day. Like, he was telling us, like, he was so proud of what he did. And that pride is what pushes you forward. It's important, with entrepreneurs, there's 2 things that most entrepreneurs lack. And that's, 1 is having the proper mindset, and 2 is being able to have the right habits of how to move forward. And so the habits are what we're talking about right now. And, once you can start getting into that motive of being able to do the right thing, you're going to be able to change those neural sequencing in your brain. You're going to be able to create new habits. And it takes 66 days, by the way. It used to be 21 days, and now it's 66 days that cognitive neuroscience says if you do the same thing, you can make or break a good or bad behavior. So it's possible. So you can do it.
Brilliant. I love the way you characterize that, because here's the thing. If your inner child is responsible for celebrating celebrating your successes, having way more mini goals inside the bigger goal is way more effective.
It is.
Right.
It is.
Because if you don't meet the big goal, but you haven't celebrated all the mini goals along the way, you feel like an utter failure. But if you celebrated all the mini goals along the way and you're like 95% there, it's like, oh, look how far we came. Okay, so we missed it by 5%. We'll just get that handled tomorrow.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I love how you're categorizing that. That's so important because so many of us just set the big objective and forget to talk about all the little milestones along the way.
Absolutely. And that's something that we teach in our Master It All program. It's an entirely new approach to goal setting. And one of the most important parts that we teach in our program is to establish your why. It doesn't matter. We can figure out how to do anything because on the internet, you can learn how to,
do anything. You can figure out how to become an author or, self-publish. It is possible to find these things on the internet nowadays, and that help is available to you, but you have to have that why. You have to be able to be willing to look and really want to have that inner desire to do so, because you can't see it unless you want it.
Yeah, and 97% of entrepreneurs, Forbes just had a new article out, and 97% of entrepreneurs are failing. That leaves only 3% in the success ratio, and those 3% are known to have their why established. And let me explain what that means. Your why is why you're doing something. I mean, what is your driving force, your passion, your intention? Why are you doing it? If we work with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in my consulting business, and then they get right to this point where they're just about to have like a major success. And in the past, you know what? Those people who are just about ready to have a breakthrough, it gets really hard, something happens, they quit. And that's the 97%. But understanding your why helps you break through that barrier and move into that top 3% of being able to move forward.
It's your eudaimonia goal, right? What we were talking about earlier. If you're clear who you want to be in the world and the contribution and the legacy you want to leave, that's the why that will pull you through the disasters that has 97% of other entrepreneurs failed because they chose a business they thought they'd make money at instead of choosing a business they thought would really light fire in their life.
So what was your why? I want to just hear it in your own words.
When I first started my business, it was more loosely articulated, but my why was I really wanted to help the people who were leading positive change in the world. That's how I articulated it when I first started it. Now it's become the thing that pulls me forward the most is my personal goal, which has now become the Evolutionary Business Council's goal, which is that transformational principles and consciousness will reach 1.2 billion people on planet Earth by the year 2020 by helping 1,200 emerging thought leaders each reach 1 million. And that's essentially the EBC declaring itself the tipping point for a conscious Earth, because those numbers represent 15% or tipping point numbers for the planet.
And I can see that happening. I mean, I drank the Kool-Aid. I'm part of the Teresa, the Teresa EBC. So I drank the Kool-Aid. I get what it is. I get what it's like. I mean, I was a little slow coming in because, I've been so busy, but once you focus forward and you talk to other people, and that's what it's about. It's about the people, it's about the knowledge, and it's about the willingness to help other people. I mean, this has been a wonderful, wonderful journey. And, I think, we've had such an intelligent conversation that we've kind of breaking down into the little pieces to help people really understand that no matter what their circumstance is, you're a single mom, right? You're a single mom. I'm a single mom. And here we are today talking. And if anything, let's put this out there. Let's say this. We want to encourage other single moms. I mean, we want to encourage other people, of course, but we want to encourage other single moms. I mean, if we can do it, you can too, right? Turn obstacles into opportunities.
A single dad.
Yeah, or a single dad, or just a single person who feels a little bit lost in the world. I mean, you can do these things, and there are people out there. And, we have a free course that we offer people. It's a 10-minute training. There's 5 different segments that really help people understand about their negative internal beliefs. So if anybody's interested in learning more about that, they can always go to our Jodi, J-O-D-I, Jess, J-E-S-S site to learn more about that. But Teresa, tell people how they can find out more about you and more about your book. And I'm sure we're going to have all of that in the
description, right?
The description, so everybody will know. But can you please tell us how they can find you?
Absolutely. I'd love to have you come do our 30-day influence challenge. And when you do, we send you to all the sites where you can get a digital version of my book free if you want to download it off iTunes or Kobo or Kindle. That would be massinfluencethebook.com. And you can sign up for the 30-day influence challenge is just quick 2-minute exercises every day that help you learn the skills of the highly influential just by doing them.
And that's free.
And that's absolutely complimentary as well.
It's awesome. I've done it myself, and Jess just started looking into things like that. I mean, it is really awesome. So I highly recommend. And then what are your other websites or?
Well, and if you resonate with the Evolutionary Business Council and you want to check that out, come to ebcouncil.com and you're more than welcome to come and have a look and see if it's a fit for you.
Oh, that's great. That's right.
awesome.
So if you're a provocative thought leader, you're somebody who really wants to make a difference in the world, that would be for you. It's for established people, pretty much, right? Established people who already...
If you're already stepping into making a difference in the world, then it's a great community to support you.
Well, before we close, we always have a really special part of our program, and we'd like to play a quick game with you if you would be amenable.
Absolutely.
So we have the power word brain game, which is basically a word association game. So, if I say cat, you might say dog, or I might say sky and you might say blue, something like that. But yeah, so we have 5 words, and we basically want to see what your word association, what comes to your mind, because entrepreneurs' minds are much different than
right.
most people.
And we encourage you out there to play as well. So as soon as we say the word, kind of think of your own word. Don't use Teresa's, don't cheat. So, and then we're just going to give a quick explanation of your words, and then we'll wrap up the show. So
now you get to see how crazy.
Yeah, no. How ingenious.
Yes.
That's the word. That's the word that we want to say.
Okay, so I just want to ask you, the first word is success.
Ongoing.
Okay. How about happiness?
Purpose.
How about wealth?
Friends.
Love
that.
never heard that one.
How about freedom?
Influence.
Love it. Okay, and how about last one? Knowledge.
Fun.
Oh, I love it.
Love it. Okay, so now this is when we go over it and we talk about how awesome your responses are. So I said success and you said ongoing. Can you explain why you chose the word ongoing?
Success to me is a journey. It's not a point that you get to.
I totally 100% agree.
That's awesome. And that's purely from an entrepreneurial mind, ladies and gentlemen.
Definitely.
So that was beautiful. So
and then the next one, I said happiness, and you said purpose.
the intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, intrinsic motivation.
You
right.
you have
Absolutely.
that, like
Yeah.
Newtonian, like you said, you have happiness, you find your purpose, you have happiness. Once again, that's purely from an entrepreneurial mind.
Okay, so the next one was wealth. I said wealth, and you said friends.
And most people say money
Or happiness, or I want wealth, or yeah.
Well, and the reality is I've been financially free since the age of 42. So I don't discount money as part of wealth. But when I think about what makes me feel like a multimillionaire in my life, it's actually the people in my life more so than the assets I own.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I truthfully, although I'm monetarily, I'm in the millions, from a friend standpoint, I really do feel like a billionaire. I have some of the most exquisite friends on the planet and just some amazing people in my life. And so I actually really do believe your true wealth in life are the people who love you.
Oh, I love that.
I totally agree.
Will you be part of our mutual admiration club?
Yeah. I love what you teach. I think this is so brilliant.
awesome.
I would come on your show any day.
Oh my God, we're gonna have you back on. I'm holding you to that. So,
But
thank you.
so then we have the last two. I said freedom, and you said influence. So do you feel that?
That's
that's
book.
That's
your
your
what her
book,
expertise
Mass
is about.
Influence.
Is mass influence. So
I think influence is one of the most underrated skills on this planet, because influence is the only force of change on this planet. And anything you want to create can be created from influence. In fact, my next book is going to be called The First Economy, because I know that before we had an economy of money on this planet, we had an economy already running that was the currency of influence. A lot of people are masters at that game, but they don't ever really talk about it or articulate what it looks like. And so, it's important for people to understand how that operates, because you can buy influence with money, but that kind of influence is very fleeting. People who truly have influence can completely shift the face of this planet. So I actually, I built my whole business to generate influence over money, which I don't know if that's ever heard of in business. I have marketers in the company who
never.
say, what did you do? You built a marketing funnel.
yes.
That's upside down. And I'm like, no, I built the marketing funnel that's right side up.
I know this last one is my favorite. I said knowledge, and you said fun.
Yes, I love knowledge. I think knowledge is so fun. I love learning it from other people too. too. Like, I love just going to parties and listening to really smart people talk. I think that's
Oh my gosh. I think that is so awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, your 5 power words of the day from Tessie and Teresa both are ongoing, purpose, friends, influence, and fun. Does that not sound like you, Teresa? That's totally you in a nutshell. And on that note, I mean, I'm so excited that you were here. You know, we have all of your information that's going to be in the links, and we hope you come back for another show. We had so much fun, you know, discussing with you, and we thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to add before we close up today?
Oh, I would just say give yourself permission to go step into your dreams, because life is so much sweeter on the other side.
Oh, beautiful. And it doesn't matter how many steps you take.
As long as you're stepping in the right direction, right?
As long as you're stepping in the right direction.
Right, and of course, life is what you make it.
So make it your best life possible.
Absolutely. So Teresa, thank you again so much for being here. It was such a pleasure. You gave us such amazing information, and our listeners such amazing information, that I hope that they will take away from this and be inspired
and
to
share with your friends.
Yes.
Because everybody needs to know something about what Teresa had to say here.
Absolutely.
Share. And we thank you so much. And everybody have a blessed day.
Yes.
And we'll talk to you soon. So thanks, Teresa.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
It was a joy to be here.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Jodi and Jess show. Now here's how you can help us out.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and anywhere you'd like to help inspire and motivate someone else to turn their own obstacles into opportunities.
You will be the reason that they change their life.
Want more inspiration in your life? Please visit jodijess.com. That's JODIJESS.com. Or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Jodi Jess Pod. JODIJESS Pod.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you next week.